During the Okay, we are live. Now we do usually just wait a few seconds to give people a chance to get into the show, get into the live stream before we formally start. But yes, we have Braden here today. A big homecoming game, and we'll talk in just a few seconds. Homecoming, we're all tired. Showing the shirt. And I think we'll just go ahead and start. So, hello, ladies and gentlemen of Vanderbilt, and welcome to Terrier Talk, Season 2, Episode 7. Big homecoming week last week, and a great game. And to talk about the game, and specifically the great plays on defense that we made, we have Mr. Braden Heck. Thank you for coming.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, the defense was awesome. We won the game 21-7. Our offense had some good moments, and I'll talk about that later. But here with you, I want to talk about the defense. We had 5 interceptions. So tell me about that. How did that go?
Well, before the game, we all get hyped up. We talk about how we're going to get picks. And watching the film, we saw how the quarterback was, how he, underthrew balls a lot. So
that was a tendency beforehand?
He wouldn't make accurate passes.
Okay.
And it was like he would just toss it up. So we're like, well, if we're in our coverage, we should get it. Well, I remember the first pick, the quarterback was scrambling. It was a busted screenplay.
Okay.
And they threw it up. And we probably could have had 3 DBs on that ball, 3 or 4. Chris got it. We went. Second pick.
I mean, that first of all, I would just want to stop you a couple things. So that one was just awesome as a play because it felt like it wasn't just the DBs. It was the entire defense. Interville also gets the pressure. The entire D-line's collapsing. He just throws it up, and it was glorious. But also I want to touch on Deshaun Travis. Yes, it was a great homecoming game. We're going to talk about the offense later, but for now we're just going to talk about the defense. So continue. Yes, first great interception.
So the second pick, Landon Rogers got burnt a little bit on the side, and the quarterback made a bad underthrown ball, and he did good recovering to it. And he made the high point like we practiced. And
you look like a wide receiver out there.
Yeah, he played it like a receiver. And when we went on our team, Cushing said, "You're a DB, you're not a receiver. You can't let that happen." But good job getting there.
Mm-hmm.
And after that, we're all getting hyped,
right?
Because we're locking down on the pass game. And the third pick, I think it was mine. The receiver ran a little out route. I had seen curl fly. If you don't know what that is, I have basically the little out routes on the sides. Not the deep, just the short routes. And I saw him throw it, I undercut it. I thought I was going to take it to the house. But the guy was on me. He tackled me as soon as I caught it. So I was quite upset. But, it showed our defense, our D-line probably pressured him to make that throw. And our D-line's been whooping on the O-line, having a great coaching staff. It's helping a lot. And the fourth pick, they threw it up, just throwing it up because it's towards the end of the game.
Right.
And me and Kenny were there. Kenny just has better hops, a better vertical, and just out-jumped me for it.
It's almost like he gets like 10 rebounds a game and playing basketball or something.
Exactly. Not exactly. And the last pick was for sure just trying to put some points on the board. They threw it. The receiver and Alex, they both had a 50-50 chance.
Mm-hmm.
Alex overcame it, and that's how we got our 5th pick.
Yeah. It was just a great overall team performance from not just the 5 DBs, but the entire defense. Only giving up 1 touchdown near the end of the half. A momentum swing. I'll say this, as a person, I'm not on the field. I'm a part of the team, but I'm in some ways speculating during halftime. I'm scared, only at 14-7. They have the momentum. I'm worried about how the beginning of this game is going to go and how the beginning of the second half is going to go. And then it happens, that first part, and I think that was your interception, right, at the very beginning of the second half. And that just relieved all of the tension I have because they get the ball to start the second half. I'm worried because if they tie this up, we might just get rolled over because if the momentum's in their hands, then we don't know what can happen. And then that interception, and it rolls the other way, and it's great. And it's amazing. It's fun to watch. I really enjoyed watching that. And you're right. It was an entire performance. It wasn't just the DBs. Even Capel, the other defensive back, the one who didn't have an interception, we talked about this before the show started. He was close to getting an interception, probably a pick 6 at the time. And that was, the entire defense was just all over this quarterback. quarterback. You talked about his inaccuracies. You guys capitalized on every single mistake that he made, and it was an all-around team great performance. The defensive line, the linebackers, all had great performances. And part of that, so Chandler Rhodes kind of doesn't need to be spoken for.
Yeah.
He's one of the best players on the team, but he tied leading the team in tackles this week. He tied with Braden Heck, which just a great game. Had only interceptions, of course, and that I think it was 6 tackles throughout the game combined, 12 between you, both of you. And that is great, especially considering the fact you're coming back off of the injury. So I kind of want to talk about that. How was that rehab process for you over the last couple of weeks?
It's terrible because after the Berwick game, I would say I had a pretty good game for that.
You did.
And I got stepped on my I made a tackle and I landed on my fibula, and it hurt bad. And watching us play Dutchtown, I wanted to be on the field to kill them.
Right.
But it just made me want to be out there, get better, help out our team while we can. And it was a painful little rehab, but I was happy I was able to play for homecoming and be with my teammates.
We've seen players come back from injury and be a little bit slow starting. Like, for example, Caleb's going to be coming back in a few weeks, and he'll probably have to get worked into the team. Kenny had a good game. He didn't have the tackles that you did. First of all, I want to stop here for a second. Is there a specific – I don't know the exact structure of how your guys' defense works. I assume you guys play 2 different positions.
Yeah.
I assume that has some kind of relevance as to why you had a lot more tackles than he did throughout the game. Was there?
Oh, yeah. Playing corner, it's very hard to get tackles because most of the time you have man-to-man coverage, and the receivers, they're just trying to go downfield. So the corner's going to be on him the whole time. But with free safety, I have my eyes all across the field, and I can see where a play's going from the beginning, basically.
Oftentimes, especially in the pass game, if the corner gets a tackle, that's probably a bad thing, not a good thing. Whereas the free safety can sometimes run into the run game and make a lot of good plays there, and kind of be that safety valve of stopping a big play from being a big play. Because they got some chunk plays on the run game. They had a little bit of success, but largely because of you and that DB and the entire defense, you were able to stop those chunk plays, and they were never able to get a really big drive except for that one at the very end of the half. Deshaun did not get Braden did not get 5 interceptions. Braden had 1. The team had 5 interceptions as a whole. The entire defensive backing core had a great game, just picking off of this poor quarterback for Welsh. No, Braden did not have 5 interceptions. I apologize if either of us misworded that earlier on in the show. But yeah, Braden should have had 2. He talked about this earlier. Braden was there for almost every single interception, and it kind of felt like even watching the game. I didn't look back on it and realize that until now. But even watching the game, every single play, it felt like you were near the ball. It felt like you were right there every single time. And that's phenomenal. And one thing I want to get back to, especially coming back from that injury, a lot of players with foot injuries on the team, but. You come back, you don't look slow, you don't look like you need to be worked back in, and you came back for your senior homecoming game, and you played really, really well. And I can't do anything other than congratulate you for that. So thank you for coming on, and congratulations on that great game. Thank you, Braden.
Thank you.
So drafted for Braden first. So Carter had a few comments, actually, drafting Braden first round in fantasy league. So, but yeah. So, thank you. If you want to stay, you can. We usually, people usually don't, but you can if you want to. I'll be moving on to other points in both the Berwick game and in other games. So, not the Berwick game, excuse me, the Welsh game, as well as other games. So the Welsh offense, excuse me, the offensive game for Welsh is one thing I wanted to touch on. So you do want to stay, I guess, or do you?
I'll head out. Hey, thanks for that.
Well, thank you.
Also, I want to make one more point.
Yeah, sure.
The quarterback that played in all the film, he was a receiver. He was their number 1 receiver, and he played at quarterback.
Oh, okay, that's actually one thing I really wanted to point out. So I was in the press box during the game. Coach Fisher goes, "Number 6 is playing quarterback," and there's something I thought about. So it's not their normal quarterback. What happened to their normal quarterback?
Well, I think their normal quarterback, like I told you, he wasn't passing like.
Oh, okay.
But in the film, you can see 6. He'll go a quarterback for Wildcat. Pass it every now and then. But number 6 is just a playmaker. He's their best player, so they probably put him at quarterback to make plays where they can.
And he played very well. He's a very good player. That is a very interesting insight. I didn't realize that. But still picked off of him like vultures. It was still a great game for you guys. So congratulations on that and helping with that defense. So thank you.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. Carter and Bryce, I'm going to go ahead and move around the camera. Carter and Bryce, be nice. Come on. Need to. Yeah, Carter and Bryce, I don't know if this is the right place to be doing that sort of stuff. Okay. Need to just get this set up a little bit. It is okay, Carter. Just, if we want to talk about the game, if you have any questions for the game, obviously I'm very willing to interact and talk about that and answer any questions, but I don't know what all of that was. Anyway, so I talked about the defense a lot with Braden, but there are a couple of very big points to make with the offense. Obviously, a drastic improvement from the Dutchtown game. Not quite the same improvement, looking back from the Berwick game. I don't know how you could ever replicate those statistics, especially from, say, Gavin's point of view, from a lot of points of view, actually. Gavin, John Luke, Colin Robichaux, Hunter Porsche. But a very solid game against a very solid team. I'll talk about Welsh themselves in a little bit. But our offense, going back to last week, there were a lot of words that I could describe the play of our offense. And I will go ahead and say specifically Gavin, because he's the quarterback. He helps run that offense. That's how the flow of the offense runs. The last word that I would use would be dynamic. It was not a dynamic game by any stretch. And if there was one word going from last week to this week that I would use to describe the play of our offense this week, it would definitely be dynamic, which is at the very least an improvement, even if dynamic has some negative qualities to it. We saw those negative qualities. We saw those turnovers. We saw things happen that didn't go in our favor. But we also saw things happen that went in our favor. And those 21 points, those 3 touchdowns, Gavin was responsible for all 3 of them, were enough to win the game. We ended up putting, of course, 21-7. So let's talk about that. So I will start with Gavin, again, quarterback, kind of the center of the offense. He had 2 rushing touchdowns. He had about 90 yards rushing, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a fumble. And he also had about 140 passing yards. I think he was like 13 for 25 or 13 for 26. 425 passing yards, 140 passing yards, and 2 interceptions and a touchdown. Gavin, he felt like a gunslinger today. He felt like Friday. He was willing to take those risks that, not necessarily that he wasn't willing to take during touchdown, but that, didn't seem to happen as often during that touchdown game. He threw that ball with, in some ways, reckless abandon, and he got burned a couple times because of it. But he also scored points because of it. And that's great. That's an improvement. Ball security has to improve, of course, but that's a huge sign of improvement from the week previous. And that's big. That is really important, because now we're about to get into district. Those are the games that, really matter when it comes to our goal in the regular season. And we have 5 winnable games. I'll talk about that more in a second. But, Gavin made a big jump from last week to this week, and that is really, really important for him. And I'm really proud of him for it. Outside of that, Dylan Gode got 18, or a lot of carries. I think it was 18, for 60 yards. A solid game from him, carrying the rock a lot. Not a fumble from him. Good game. Colin Robichaux got a few touches, some catches from Hunter Porsche, Jean-Luc Lepere, Jacory Wells. But I'll talk about kind of the flow of the game a little bit here, outside of the specific statistics. I touched on it a little bit with Braden, but from the offensive point of view, you have we start the game, trade a couple of punts, Gavin Nagel, run and a 40-yard run for a touchdown. Big play to start the game. We go up 7-0, and we're playing with a lead, we're playing with a first quarter touchdown, which is something we've only done once this entire season up until this point. Of course, the Berwick game. Welsh is a much better team than Berwick. Welsh is a pretty average team. Berwick is not an average team. Nothing against them, but they aren't as good as Welsh is. Welsh isn't great or anything, but Welsh is definitely a better team than Berwick. My point is, we got that first big punch. I talked to Gavin about this. I talked to a couple of players about this. If we throw that first punch, score the first points, this game can end very well for us, and it did. Maybe largely because of those 7 points in the beginning. We start trading points. We score again. However, backtrack a little bit, excuse me. Before we score again, we're driving down the field. We convert 4th and goal on the 2, 4th and 1. Gavin gets it. I think it was on like a run up the middle, just a keeper. Not a quarterback sneak, but just a keeper up the middle. We run it again, and Gavin fumbles on the 1, and they recover the fumble in the end zone for a touchback. Trade punts, we get the points again, though. We get the points after the punt with good field position and score, but those are 7 points we left on the board. Then we're getting towards the end of the second quarter. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit scattered with this. I apologize. But we'll get towards the end of the second quarter. And Gavin, again, is playing with reckless abandon. He is, not worried about making a mistake. He's throwing chunk play, big passes, John Luke, Hunter, DeCorey, big plays. We're getting towards the red zone. He throws it up. It's a little bit of an underthrow. The safety picks it off at the 1, returns it about 30 yards, and that leads Welsh to their only touchdown drive of the game to cap off the end of the second half, the end of the second quarter, the end of the first half. What do you think the Terriers can do to improve their offense? I'll talk about that in a second. There's one big thing, but I'll talk about that in a second. But up 14-7 at halftime, we started the game with the ball. At halftime, I'm worried because I'm looking at the first 4 minutes of that second half. It's something Coach Lede stresses. The first 4 minutes of the second half are one of the 2 most important points of the game. That and the last 2 minutes of the game. If we do not stop them on that first drive, they get the ball to start the second half, we could be in for a lot of worry. We don't. We don't give up the touchdown. We do stop them. Braden Heck has that big interception to start off the rolling that happens, start the ball rolling, start off that momentum for the second half. And that's great. And we use that to score another touchdown. We stall a bit in the second half. I think Gavin throws the second interception that happening in the second half. But in the fourth quarter, we hand the ball off a lot. We have a lot of run plays. We chew up a lot of the clock through 2 different drives, and we win the game. And yeah, 21 points doesn't look amazing, and we've been inconsistent throughout the season, but a win is a win. And a win again in the homecoming game the week before district is really important. We're sitting at 2-3. We have a couple of ugly losses, but this is a team that can do some great things in the district. So I'm going to go ahead and address Deshaun's question. How can the offense improve? I think the word that is the most necessary here is consistency, because we have all of the pieces. I've said this multiple times throughout this season. This is an offensive line going into the season that worried me. We didn't have a returning starter. Mark got injured. Mark is out for the season. But it was an offensive line that worried me. Those concerns are pretty much gone now. We had a little bit of a rough game against touchdown, but we came back against Welsh and played very well. We have a quarterback in Gavin Nagel that I trust, that I like in that position. We have, despite all the injuries, a solid running back core now with Dylan Goday and Colin Robichaux. And we're going to get Caleb back and working him back in a few weeks. And our wide receiver core is one of the strongest position groups in the game, even with an injury to Hayes Thompson. Jacory's still strong. John Luke's still strong. Hunter's still strong. And we're going to get reps from Colin Robichaux and Joseph Bauman, who I trust in those positions. So the entire offense can play. We have all the pieces. It's just putting a game together that we have to do. We have to be consistent. We can't have Berwick one week, one of the best production games from an offense I've ever seen, maybe at any level, especially in high school, from the entire team. Again, John Luke with 150 all-purpose, Cullen Robichaud with 150 all-purpose, Gavin Daigle with 300 all-purpose. Amazing game, 292 rushing yards. One of the best games I've ever seen from an offense. We can't have that week 3 and then lay an egg against Dutchtown the next week. We can't do that. We have to be consistent game to game, and we have to finish a game all together. We put up 34 points against Berwick in the first half, and we put up 7 in the second half off of one big play. The big play was impressive. Talked about it with Gavin in week 3. It was impressive, but we have to finish that game. We have to put up 60 on Berwick in that situation. And I understand the play calling changed, but the point is still the same. We have to finish a game like that. We have to put together a game. We had a good game against Welsh. We only put up 21 points. That's partially because the play calling got more conservative in the fourth quarter. The objective wasn't putting up points. The objective was ending the game, limiting Welsh to as few possessions as possible, which we did decently well. Ran out a lot of the fourth quarter, which is something I thought we were going to be able to do going into the game. And we were able to do that. But we can't have this solid game. We have ball security issues, and I'll talk about that in a second. But we can't have this solid game against Welsh and then lay an egg the next week. We cannot do that. The South Lafourche game is going to be pivotal for that next week and how the rest of the season is going to go. This team has the ability to be great. The defense has shown they're a very solid defense. They're similar to how they were last year. Not numerically quite the giant that they were last year up to this point, but still very solid. And look, they're going to be reliable against teams that don't have the number one wide receiver in the States. Even against Dutchtown, we only really gave up like 28 points as a defense. They had like 3 non-offensive touchdowns. But in speaking of that, outside of just overall consistency, there's one other big aspect that we have to fix over the course of the last 2 weeks. Ball security. We're moving the ball down the field. Even against Dutchtown, we had a 20-play drive. We're moving the ball down the field, but we have to finish. We have to put the ball in the end zone. We can't give up the ball in the end zone, and we cannot give up the ball in general. We had 5 turnovers against Dutchtown and 3 this week against Welsh. We cannot do that. We cannot do that. We have to keep hold of the ball, be secure with the ball, no fumbles, no interceptions, and then we have to be able to move the ball down the field. We're doing that, but we have to do it consistently, and we have to do it every single game. If we do that, this team can do some great things during district. Every single team we play in district is beatable. South Lafourche isn't very good. I'll talk about that at the end. That's the main event for this week. Although there's some other worries about that game. I'll talk about that. South Terrebonne is a sleeper team. They're a good team, but they're beatable. Ellender is not very good. Morgan City is not very good. Assumption is a very good team, but they're also beatable. I'll talk about that. We'll talk about that more when we get to Assumption in a few weeks. Is there a way to donate to the show? As of now, no. I can. It's something people have asked before. I probably should set something up, maybe a Patreon or something. I don't know. But I'll look into that in the future, because the more people ask about that, the more I definitely need to consider something like that. So, but for now, that's the game. Good game, solid game. Have ball security issues. Need to check those going into South Lafourche. I'll talk about the South Lafourche game at the end of the show. That'll be the main event because it's a huge rivalry game. So great job for the Terriers there. Moving on, the only other, there were 2 other events. Volleyball had 2 games against at E.D. White, and then against Assumption. So at E.D. White, the volleyball team got crushed, basically. I don't know the exact scores of each set, but we lost 3-0. I know there's a lot more to a volleyball game than the set score, but that was pretty disappointing, I have to say. Now, that's nothing against E.D. White. E.D. White's a very good team. They were in the state championship game last year, but that's a game that we need to be able to win. Of course, that makes the Holy War score, 2-0 E.D. White now with 2 varsity losses. I'm not going to count the cross country and swimming meet wins until we get to like the final meet, because they basically play E.D. White every week. So that doesn't really count. To me, I don't think that's fair. But I'll count that in the last meet, the state meet, for both cross country and swimming, as well as track and all those different sort of competitions. But that's pretty disappointing. I wish, obviously, we could have done a lot better. Starting get a little bit worried about how this season is gonna go. Not to say that we're not going to be a good team. We're going to be a very good team, but the wins against great teams aren't coming in the way that I thought they would be. I thought this would be our peak as a team, but we're losing to some teams I thought we would be beating this season, specifically Edie White, and that's a little bit concerning. Now, that being said, we're still going to crush 80% of the teams that we play. We saw that against Assumption. We beat them 3-1. A solid game there. Great job from the Terriers there, but there's a little bit of worry, and we're not going to see if we can stop those concerns this week because we're playing a couple of teams that we need to be able to beat. Just generally, no matter how good comparatively the team is to last year. I'll talk about that in the previews. But Edie White, we lost in disappointing fashion. We crushed Assumption. You have to be able to go 2-0 in a week like that for Vanderbilt. Then finally, cross country had very good news for cross country. The boys improved a lot from last week. I don't know the exact placing, but they did very well, and they're looking like a legitimate contender. And they're improving. They're a young team, but young teams, with more experience, will get better as the season goes on, and they are. So great job to them. But the girls, they won again. That's not the news. The news is Bryn Kelso beat the school record for the girls. Bryn Kelso broke Alexa Bro's school record by running an 18-minute, 28-second cross-country run. That is phenomenal. I don't know how else to say it. That is huge congratulations to Bryn Kelso. I assume she won the meet. It would be odd if she didn't. She's won every meet except for one this year. And the girls won, so I assume she won the meet. But she broke the school record. That is amazing. Huge, great job to her. Cannot give her enough congratulations for that. Great job, Bryn Kelso, for that run. The girls won, no big surprise. They're probably going to be favorites going into state at this point. But great job to Bryn. Great job to both the boys and the girls team for that. So moving on to previews, going to touch on volleyball country. So volleyball have a couple of games, a district game at Eleanor on Tuesday and a home game against South Terrebonne on Thursday, I think. These are two teams that aren't traditionally very good volleyball teams that we've beaten, I think, in jamborees earlier this season. So we should beat them pretty easily. Again, this isn't a week that's going to satisfy any concerns that we have about beating great teams because these just aren't two good teams. They're teams that we should be crushing in district, and I assume we will. Cross country has another meet. Volleyball. Volleyball also has a tournament at the Civic Center this weekend. That I assume would be a more local tournament. Maybe a team like Edie White would probably be the best team there. Maybe we have a chance to get revenge on them. We'll see. But I assume they'll do pretty well with Edie White there or not there. Probably a pretty good performance for volleyball there, I assume. I wish them the best of luck, of course. Cross country has another meet this week. Just, the same ideas, the same things. I don't think there's anything specific about this meet. But I wish them the best of luck at the meet. So good luck to them. Now let's talk about the main event. The main event is football against South Lafourche. We host it. It is exam week, so there's not going to be any pep rally. There's not going to be any, big stuff about it. Just the game. And we get off for school that day, though, for Friday, which is pretty interesting. But yeah, no big stuff around it. Just the game. But it's a big one. At home is a struggling South Lafourche team. And I say struggling because, it's struggling and it's South Lafourche, and those are two very important aspects of this game. So South Lafourche is 0-5. They're really bad. They've gotten crushed by a few very good teams, Belle Chase. A few good teams. They lost, I think, 12-3 to Thibodeau. But they've gotten destroyed in, I think, 4 of their 5 games. It was like 21-6 to Belchase. They lost 12-3 to Thibodeau. Outside of that, there was 3 tail whippings for the other 3 games. They lost like 41-13 to Central Lafourche. I mean, they played some great teams, but they got crushed by them. So 0-5. This is a team that's not looking very good going into district this year. However, that doesn't mean a whole lot when we're talking about South Lafourche and Vanderbilt, and let me explain why. So we have 5 district opponents, right? South Lafourche, South Terrebonne, Ellender, Morgan City, and Assumption. 4 of those 5 opponents, since I've been here at Vanderbilt, so since 8th grade, since over the last 4 years, 4 of those 5 opponents we have not both beaten and lost to in football since I've been here. We're 4-0 against Ellender, 4-0 against Morgan City, 4-0 against South Terrebonne, we're 0-4 against Assumption. Our only other district opponent for 2 years, we went 0-2 in district against Edie White, although we're 1-5 against them since I've been here after this year. But South Terrebonne, the only exception to the rule, we are 2-2 against, which means this is theoretically the most competitive rivalry in the district, at least for us. Although I'd like to think the Assumption game is probably a little bit bigger this season. And I'll talk about that, of course, again when we get to Assumption. But South Lafourche, the other big thing about that game is we're not just 2-2. The home team in the rivalry since I've been here is 0-4. We gave up, I think it was a 13-point comeback in the 4th quarter of my 8th grade year. We got crushed our sophomore year for homecoming, and we won pretty big both my freshman and junior years at South Lafourche. This game's here, which means if the trends stay the way they are, we're going to lose this game. However, if you look at the statistics, if you look at literally any other trend outside of that, we should be pretty well favored. We're the better team. We have a better record. We're higher ranked. We're ranked like in the 150th range. We're a pretty average team out of the state of Louisiana. South Lafourche is in the 200th range, like 197th, around the same place as Berwick, I think, a couple weeks ago. South Lafourche isn't very good. They're just not a good team. I think we are a very good team. I think we've played overall better than our record shows. We probably should have beaten Edie White. And this is a team game that we should win. But this is South Lafourche against Vanderbilt. Sometimes the records don't matter. South Lafourche was not the better team going into our sophomore year against Vanderbilt 2 years ago, the last time they came here. We were 4-0. They were, I think, 1-3 or 2-2, and they crushed us. I think we win the game. I do think we win the game, and I think we win the game pretty handily. But this is South Lafourche. They take this game very seriously. I think they consider us probably their biggest rival. They kind of hate us. So anything can happen when they come up to home Louisiana. So it's a game that I'm a little concerned about because of that. I think we win. I think we win pretty handily, but watch out a little bit. Don't look ahead, I guess is the big thing for this game, because we have to win this game in order to start off the way we need to for district. So, of course, I wish the best of luck for the Terriers, hoping to get a great week of practice and then a great game. But a little bit concerning with those statistics with that rivalry in mind. So, best of luck to the Terriers. Hope they have a great week, and I hope everyone here has a great week. And hope to see you guys next time, same channel. See ya.